Today on Life, Death, and Beyond, we have a special guest, Catherine McHugh. Catherine McHugh is a validated, evidential psychic medium, author, and teacher for those with special needs. Her own experience with the physical loss of her son, close friends, parents, and pets have offered her an in-depth perspective and profound compassion for those experiencing grief and loss. She is dedicated to continually furthering her education and mediumship so she could continue to serve those in spirit with integrity, professionalism, and love as they connect with their loved ones here on the earthly side of the veil. You can reach Catherine at mediumofloveandlight@gmail.com. And Catherine's book, The Choice to Rise, Free Will in the Face of Tragedy, is available on Amazon.com. And the link to our website is kathymchugh.com. Welcome, Kathy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for being here. I'm looking forward to this.
So with this conversation, I feel like this is going to help a lot of people because a lot of people are going to go through this situation and may not know where to turn. And it can help people help with grief and, getting past that and maybe not really getting past it, but coping with it.
I like to tell my clients it's not, some early on you'll hear people when you're in grief, people say, oh, you'll get past this. I don't think we ever do. I think with grief, you learn to just sit next to it and it just becomes your companion and you make friends with it, so to speak. Yeah, it's a different process.
Beautiful. Yeah. And then that kind of led you into the mediumship and communication, which we'll get into. So would you start off by sharing your background and then after that, what happened with Sean?
Absolutely. So my background is I've actually always had a connection with spirit. And as a child, I would do things that I used to want to be a priest. I was raised Catholic, Catholic school and everything. And I used to get really mad that the women couldn't be priests. So already there was this drive. And the women that I looked up to were usually very strong spiritual women. Yeah, Mother Teresa, Helen Keller, her teacher. Um, so when I was younger, I didn't think about it till later, but I also never shared it with anybody. I would go to the beach and I would write, and then something would write back to me, Catherine, blah, blah, blah. And then the most eloquent, such wisdom, not that I had at 15, right? So there was this, and I always just thought of it as my guardian angel, wasn't really sure. So I always had that connection. Unfortunately, I lost a lot of close friends when I was young. I lost a very good friend at 19. I lost a boyfriend at 22. I lost my best friend at 32. So I would have connection with them. And in fact, one of my best friends at 32, we used to go out to Joshua Tree in the desert, and we would always be fascinated talking about the afterlife. And she's just one example of, I would say, okay, so whoever dies first has to come back and tell the other person about it. And so I did have that communication. She would come to me in my dreams. And then as well as family loss and animal loss, which is just important, I think, in my heart. But nothing quite braced me for the physical loss of Sean. So if you want, I can get into that story. But unless you have other questions.
Before that, so do you think the losses kind of helped you to prepare in a way for the loss of Sean?
Well,
A
I
little bit,
think
like
that
an
my
internal.
soul for sure, I think that I signed up for sure on a path of um, understanding the afterlife. And I definitely think that my friends' passings were pivotal because I had already had those connections and that longing for connection with spirit, with God. But what really prepared me, and only in hindsight did it prepare me, is my precognition. So I'll get into that I have three beautiful children. I love them all. There was always something about Sean. He's my middle son. Just the most, intelligent, funny, adventurous person you'll ever meet. And when he was 12, and good student, studious, all this, he was in the gifted program. And when he was 12, he was going into his room, and I just got this. I'd get these downloads throughout my life where you just this knowing, like when I met my husband, I just knew things like that. Um, and Sean walked into his bedroom, and I just got this download that he's going to live a short life. And then I felt terrible. Like, why would I think something so terrible? Right. And
Mm-hmm.
I almost got upset. Why did I think that? And then the mama bear, the human part of our aspect kicks in and said, well, it's got to be cancer because my family's riddled with cancer. I've had cancer. Well, I'll just make sure he doesn't eat red dye number 40, and take him to the doctors. And I had this whole plan and I was going to save him.
Mm-hmm.
So that just kind of went away. Um, and then we never saw addiction coming. And I never waste the chance to bring up what kratom is, which is an herb that's banned in 36 countries, but it's allowed in America in many states. And it's an opiate. So Sean was extremely intelligent, had racing thoughts and all the rest of it. And there's some OCD in the family. And I think he just thought, well, he was so smart. He's like, well, I could outwit this. I'll just medicate this herb. It's natural. I'm getting it at health food stores. How could it be bad for me? So that was what led him on the road to addiction. Um, so that first premonition was there, and I always kept trying to push it out of the way. And I kept always thinking, this whole manifestation thing, if I just visualize him, happy and healthy and 35 and married with it, I can force this to happen. And I really, really kept doing that, kept trying to be positive and helping him. And then, and he was sober for a year and a half. I really thought we got this. And a few weeks before he passed, I was on the beach again, and something told me to go grab a rock and grab this rock and write trust on it. And I know to follow that intuition,
Mm-hmm.
that guidance, and give it to his brother. So I did it and I brought it home and I said to my other son, Ryan, I said, I don't know why I'm right, but he's used to it with me. I don't know why, but I'm just feeling urged. I have to give you this rock and it says trust. And so he kept it and put it on the shelf, didn't think anything of it. And then a couple weeks before he passed, around the same week, I was just in the morning having coffee and I got this download of fentanyl. Sean will pass from fentanyl. And I thought, no, 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 no. I got in my car, I drove to his house, and I knocked on the door and he opened. And he had these stunning eyes that when he was born, nurse after nurse kept coming in because he was the boy with the lashes. I mean, he just you can tell I love this kid, right? And so Sean opened the door and he says, hi, Mom, what's going on? And I said, you can't relapse on anything. Fentanyl's in everything, not even weed. And he said, I know, Mom, I'm good. And everything, I felt like I had put out that fire, that I had controlled the world somehow. So in hindsight, those were the things that actually prepared me. But I'll tell you, I'll be honest, because I don't want to sit here and act like I've got it all together. Right after he passed, I was really mad. How could I see those things
Mm-hmm.
and yet not have the ability to stop them? And at first, it felt really cruel. Why would I be given these abilities to see things if I can't stop it, if I can't control it? And only in hindsight, through prayer and contemplation and guidance, did I realize, oh, those weren't given to me to control his destiny. Those were given to me to say, just know that this is coming.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so guidance works in a lot of different ways. It's not always that we get to, you know, control everything. That's
Mm-hmm.
been a big lesson for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely a great lesson. And we don't have control over everything. Although we try, especially as parents. I have two kids myself. So I kind of understand that. It's like trying to
Yeah.
guide them, but they have their own path, we have our path. And from my own journey, I know that we have agreements and things that we're coming in to do and to play out in the roles that we play, which plays into it, and it's not, if we don't have that understanding, it's kind of hard to figure everything out, and we get lost in all that.
Yeah, absolutely. In
Mhm.
fact, one of my first experiences, I do believe that Sean and I have had lives before. I know that. And I must not have done so well in another life, because this life I just felt I was determined. I was determined because I really felt, usually my field feels way out here, you know. I felt so contracted. I felt like my light was really close to burning out. And I just had this determination. No, I can't let this take me down. So I don't know where that came from, but I'm sure that it came from, past experiences.
Mhm.
Uh, and what's interesting is that I went to this place, and I'd never gone to mediums really before. I didn't, I kind of felt like I had my own connection. I didn't, but I was just desperate in this moment, and I went to this medium, and she right away described Sean, but was really interesting. And this is early on. This is like a couple weeks. And she described that he took on this cloak. He chose to take on the cloak of addiction to understand it more, to understand the different aspects of it, and um, what it's like and how to deal with it. And that was really hard at first to understand too, but once I started hearing and understanding what he's doing on the other side, it kind of makes sense. And we'll get into that as well later. Mhm.
Okay, perfect. And what are you doing now? You're doing helping people with disabilities, vision
Oh,
impairment.
well, I've got my master years and years ago. I'm 56 now. I'm getting up there. So I am a teacher for the blind and visually impaired. I absolutely love my job. Of course, I don't talk about this so much. I work in a public school system, so I might be outing myself with this video, but we'll see. I keep them very separate. But I've just had this. In fact, that's kind of another experience with spirit. I always thought I wanted to be a doctor, and then I just knew I was going to have children, and I knew for some reason I wasn't going to be able to leave them. Like that's a big commitment being a doctor. And so I thought, well, I'll go into business. So I was getting my undergrad degree, but I was backpacking in Europe. Um, and I was in a church, and I just got this download again. You need to go back and work with special ed.
Mhm.
And so I followed that. And I went back, but I didn't know the population. So I signed up. I was going to get my master's in special ed, and I didn't know what population. So I go in and I talk to the professor, and she starts describing, children with autism and mental health. I'm like, no, that's not it. And then, although I ended up dealing with that with Sean a little bit, right? Then describing the deaf, and I'm like, no, I talk too much. Like, I couldn't keep up with that. Then she started describing the physical challenges, and I thought I'm 5'3", if I stand up straight. I don't know if that I could manage that. And then when she described the blind, there was I always had this this admiration for Helen Keller, and every cell in my body lit up. I was like, that's it. That's where I was supposed to go. So I've been very blessed in the fact that when it's the right path, it's just like, yes, I feel it with every bone in my body. I've never had oh, I don't know what I want to, it's just been that. Um, so that was
Yeah,
that was even guided too. So that's what
perfect.
I do. I'm a full-time teacher. I teach Braille, technology, living skills, those things.
Amazing journey. Yep, and I get that. Like when it is, and how spirit tells me is like if it's you don't know, then it's not, or you're not sure, then it's not. And it just kind of
Yeah.
follow that guidance. When it's a yes, it's a yes. Just go with that.
Yes, it's
And I
very
had,
clear.
yeah, it's clear. And I had a similar situation. Like I wanted to, when I first had my children grow up, and it was like empty nesting, and because I had my kids younger, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my life?
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, go back to school. And so I wanted to help. I had this inner calling to like help people. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do though? So I started out and I went down the nutrition path because I didn't want to be a doctor. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. And so I was like, okay, well, let me do this. I'm okay with this because I don't want to draw blood. I don't want to get into surgery. And that's too yucky for me. And then, my first instinct was actually counseling, psychology. And I was like, no, I don't want to do the mind. Right. And so I went to the nutrition. And then after nutrition, after my near death experience, spirit came in with like, go into the mind. So I ended up going and get my master's in the master's degree. And then fast forward when I got into like this year, the beginning of this year, like when they brought to me, go now after all my journey from the past, so that all the lessons that I've learned, um, bring it to death doula, and that's my path. So, and like you said, every light just lights up in your body, and you just know it's like you get so excited, and it's like even though I never thought of it, you know what I mean? And it's not always what we think it is.
Right. Yeah. It's
Mhm.
but you just know. It's just
Mhm.
tuning in and listening to that for sure.
Perfect. And then I know you kind of touched a little bit on Sean's journey and how he got to have transition. Do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Yes. So he was sober for a year and a half and doing really well. And I think that there were struggles with the girlfriend and he had a weak moment and he took a pill and then it turns out that it was laced with fentanyl. That was in
Mhm.
the very beginning of this whole fentanyl epidemic. Um, and what's interesting is that, you look back and again, you just have those little feelings. So that Sunday, he had organized, he was great at organizing people and he was a sober coach. He was helping others. He was a manager at Starbucks and he's getting his degree in psychology. And he was just about to start a new job helping autistic children. And he was going to start the next day. And when I went to say goodbye to him, he had come to the house. Sunday was always family day, and he came to the house. And I remember just hugging him, and he had the most perfect little head, like he's
Mhm.
probably like I could hear him now saying, "Little mom, come on." But just the back of his head, I just loved. They're always your babies. But I remember this. It something felt strange and off, and then he went back and hugged the dog. He's a big dog lover and then he left the house, and I found myself following him out um, to the car, and me saying, "Oh, I can't wait to hear all about, your new students, your kids. I can't wait to hear all about." And he makes some joke about can't say a word, HIPAA, make some joke. And he got
Mhm.
in his car, but there was something that just felt a little unsettling to me. And again, you look back and you're like there you are. So when he had passed. Whew, it brought us to our knees. If I go there in my mind, it's been 4 years, I could still just break down and cry. It's just, this is nothing you ever want to wish on parents.
Mhm.
And so that night when I was laying in bed, I kept seeing clairvoyantly, I kept seeing a vision of his head, just his head floating above my body and him just pointing to his head like it was my head, mom, it was my head. But I wasn't sure like what was going on. And then a few nights later I remember laying in bed and feeling literally somebody poking me in the back so strongly that I woke up. I jumped and I looked and no one was there, so I knew he was trying to connect with me somehow.
Mhm.
um but I was having night, and we didn't know it was fentanyl. It was still during the COVID time where autopsies took months and months and months. So, and there was no signs of drugs or anything. So we didn't know. Um, and I was having nightmares every night about being murdered in all these different ways. Now I look back and I'm like, well, that's what that was. But after his memorial, I just thought, I can't do one night more being murdered. You don't want to have those dreams. So I just begged him. I don't know why it took that long, but I begged him, please, Sean, just come in my dreams. I cannot be murdered anymore. And and I woke up at early in the morning, and those are the times, watch for those times, right? Between three and
Yeah.
six. And I was in one of my closest friends' house, and there was this tall white being that I've seen before in life, and there's no wings or anything, like it just almost looks like the outline of the Oscar statue, but it was like 8 feet tall. Um, and it said just telepathically, he's not going to come to you, he's going to come to Joanne. That's my dear friend. And I woke up in the morning and I was kind of mad, like, well, why would he come to why would he come to me, And then I just thought again, oh, that's, you blow it off. Even a medium, even somebody who has connection will do this. It's just what we do. And so I forgot all about it. And I hadn't been going out, and my girlfriend, Joanne, came down and said, let's get you out. Let's go to the winery. Let's go get some dinner. So we went out to dinner, and I was telling her about the dream, and we had a good laugh, actually, and that was it. And then when I was driving home, I was listening to a podcast about this woman who'd got a text message from her son 3 days after he passed. And again, like you say, every cell in your body. I turned the phone off, the iPod podcast off, and I screamed. I never even screamed like this when he was here, but I screamed at him and I said, the dragonflies and the butterflies aren't cutting it, because I was being bombarded by some trippy stories about these butterflies and dragonflies. But I said that's not going to cut it. I want, a phone call or an email or a text message, something. I have to know you're here. And then as soon as I, did that, it just went away again. I went home. And about 15 minutes later, my friend Joanne called, which I thought was weird because I'd just seen her. And she said, Kath, I don't know why, but I came home and something nudged me. She's very intuitive too, although
Mm.
she doesn't believe it sometimes, but I know she is. Um, Something nudged me to check my email. And she checked her email, and there was an email from a Clyde Butterfield and to her. And then in the body of the email, all it had was the word Sean, spelled the way he spells it, Sean, in
Wow.
bold writing, not just bold writing. And then it said sent from my iPhone. So she calls me up and she goes, this is kind of weird. And I said, and then I knew she was trying to reach me. But I'm like, who's Clyde Butterfield? She had no idea. I had no idea. And I even thought he was very funny, or is very funny. So I thought maybe this was a character he'd made up, but it still wouldn't make sense. You're trying to figure it out. So I asked about a lot of people, and nobody knew. And then finally I called my dad and his wife, and she said, oh my God, Clyde Butterfield is Putty. I only knew him as Putty. No one knew him as Clyde Butterfield. This is her brother-in-law, her sister's husband, who had
Wow.
passed 5 years before. He was in AA, he was sober, and he never owned an iPhone. And the wife had shut down his email account right after he passed. So none of it still doesn't make sense, other than it's their way of finding a way to connect where there's no other explanation for this, no other possible explanation. And so then it was like, okay, all right, I'm gonna find you. And that was the beginning of me really, really taking everything seriously. What's more important that I think people should hear is, because not everybody's going to get an email or text message or things like this.
Right.
What's more important was the next day after I heard about the Clyde Butterfield, and I was like, okay, it still hurts your brain to think about it. Like, how's that even happen? Um, I stayed in bed all day, and I just allowed myself the opportunity to just stay in bed and cry all day. My husband took my other son surfing. And then by the end of the day, I'm like, get up and get something to eat. So I got up and got something to eat, and I was in the kitchen. And again, that voice that guides me said, go out into the garage and look through his things. And I argued with it, which sounds funny, but I'm like, I
I
don't
do it
want,
all the time.
yeah, I just like, yeah, we all do it probably. And I didn't want, I said, I don't want to go through his things. I just had to go through his things for his memorial. It was too painful. But it was like, go through his things. So, okay. So I went out and I'm going through a stack of papers and I find this, actually have it framed on my desk here. It was this Mother's Day card and just with this love letter that Sean wrote to me. And
Mhm.
and I don't remember it. I was like, I don't even remember him giving this to me. And it was the most beautiful little letter. And then I hear Sean look down two more papers. So I lift up two more papers, and there is a picture that he painted. Again, I can't remember this. I mean, I saved all the art, but I just went through all of his things. I didn't
Mhm.
see these before. And there was a paint, he had painted it. It was a butterfly and a dragonfly. And he wrote in pencil, pointing to the dragonfly, pointed to the butterfly, as if I couldn't recognize it. He was an artist. I mean, and I'm looking at it, trying to make sense of this, and I hear him so clearly say, "See, Mom, the butterflies and the dragonflies count too."
Mhm.
And it was such a humbling experience. Like, yeah, don't bypass. So for all these people out there listening and are watching, don't bypass those little nudges. In fact, I was just giving a reading to a mom the other day, and she was saying, I never get signs from my child. I don't understand. And right away, this child showed me license plates. And I said, well, you're showing me license plates. And she goes, oh my gosh, And then she realized she was this license plate the other day that with the numbers that she had for her daughter cut right in front of her. So we can skip over these. We can just bypass them. We have to pay attention.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
we only get maybe 50%, if that, of what they try to send us.
Yeah, it's important to become aware of those signs, and maybe because we're looking for like this big sign, or we're going to hear them, or we're expecting something, but they're trying to communicate in another way, through
And
their
that's
way,
that's
because we can't communicate through our way.
yes. And I think that was such a humbling experience. See, Mom, the butterflies and the dragonflies count too. Um,
Absolutely.
what's interesting about today's day and age, though, is I was so, so proud of my son, and I started doing all this research, and I'm sure you're familiar with Mark Pitstick,
Hmm.
and I had reached out, and I think it was his secretary or someone at the time at the University of Arizona. I said, I have, evidence. My son sent me this. And I was telling the whole story, and she goes, "Oh, yeah, you saw an angel," and she was so nonchalant about it. And then she goes, "Please send it to us. We're going to put it with the other thousands that we're getting from around the world." So it's so fascinating to me. I almost wonder, is this younger generation, more equipped with the digital age, right?
Hmm.
So there's a lot going on right now, and we just have to pay attention and be grateful. Be great. I needed to be grateful for those butterflies and the dragonflies. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely true. Yep. And I just spoke with Dr. Pitstick, sorry. Um, I think it was this at the beginning of the week.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah,
See how things
so
line up? He's so lovely. I mean, I've gone to the
mhm.
Helping Parent Teal conferences, and he just had this sign on that said free hugs. I mean, he's just
Aw.
such a lovely soul. Yeah.
Yeah, he is definitely beautiful. Um, so, because I do life coaching, also grief coaching, and then death coaching, and part of the death doula role that I do, helping people transition.
Yeah.
And that's why, I'm having all these conversations and bringing insight from others in so it can help people. So a
Yeah.
little bit about facing grief as losing a child. I know we have a lot of different things that we do grieve. We can grieve a job if we put everything into it. It's our identity. We go through grief. If we've lost friends, if we've lost pets, if we've lost uh, parents, but it's all different, right? And it's going to take a different toll depending on our level of closeness or attachments or beliefs that we hold. And it can be all of our upbringings, our environmental influences, could be religion, could be what we're told about our death, things like that. It's all going to play a part and role in it. Could you explain a little bit about like grief as losing a child, if you're comfortable with that? And then that way, maybe people can understand a little bit more about that type of grief. So they're a little bit more sensitive. Because I know sometimes we can come across unsensitive and not know what to say or feel uncomfortable. Can you understand or share a little bit about going through that process and what that would look like?
Yes, I mean, first off, people just are they only know what they know. I mean, I know that there were things people would had said to me where, oh, like and they didn't know any better, but I remember somebody saying it right soon after, well, you need to be happy, that's what Sean would want. That probably isn't what you'd want to say to somebody. Um, or talking about how hard it was for them to hear the news. Oh my gosh, I was devastated when I heard, and then I'm comforting that person. I think the best thing to say is just, I'm so sorry. What can I do to help? Or I can't imagine, Um, losing, and I have to qualify it, physically losing Sean's body because I haven't lost Sean,
Hmm.
uh,
Exactly.
it's really, it was really, it's hard to put words to it. And I do think that religion can play into it, and judgment can play into it. I remember one person who, happened to be raised Catholic had called me, and I was raised Catholic, so there's nothing, nothing negative there, but there were some thought processes, right? Some dogma. And they had called me right after Sean passed and we're in a panic. Do you think he knows how to go to the light? To the light? So then there's this fear that's coming
Hmm.
at me. And thank God I knew enough to where I knew that of course he knows, of course he's met with absolute love. Um, Another thing that now Sean's crossing was accidental, but there was a question about that for a while. Yeah, God, was this accidental or did you do this on purpose? And there are many children who do cross um, through their own hand. I don't like to say commit suicide because it makes it sound like you're committing a crime. You know,
Hmm.
you don't say commit cancer or commit any of those others. So I just like to be sensitive around that. And they're just not thinking. I've given readings where there are people who've passed over and they just show it's almost like dementia. Like once they got out of that brain and they had a greater perspective of their life, they're like, if I was thinking this clearly, I wouldn't have done that. It's
Hmm.
just, but they're greeted with even more support and more love. They're not, condemned to hell. So those are those perspectives that can get in the way and I think can do a lot of harm to someone who's already in a lot of pain. Um, so I'm hoping that with more education and with more near-death experiences and like Sonia Rinaldi's work, I don't know if you're familiar with Sonia Rinaldi.
Hmm. Yep.
So with this work, I hope that people will start to understand that it's not that some of those old myths and those stories really keep people in a lot of fear and
Hmm.
they cause a lot of harm to parents who are already grieving. I think that's shifting now. Thank goodness.
Hmm. Definitely. And that's part of also what I do, because I had a near-death experience in 2010, and it was 2004 where Spirit was like, okay, now start talking about it. And I was like, oh, okay, how am I going to do that?
Yeah.
So I started just doing different things, and then I found ions and started going to groups and talking about it. And then it was like, okay, let's start doing more, expand it, just little by little. And I think it helps people to understand, it's not an end. We do transition and we all go to the light and we are all loved. We're all forgiven. Or, not that we need forgiveness, but there is no reason for it. And so my understanding is like we've all signed up for it. So how do you forgive something that you signed up for? And
Right.
it's just everything's perfectly divine, and orchestrated. So, um, yeah, definitely. And yeah, with the religion, it can, depending on the depths and the type of religion or belief systems, it can get into the way and kind of invoke fear about transition. You have to be so good, so you don't go to hell, which doesn't exist from my understanding in my own journey. and what I channel. But it's just understanding, and navigating through that with our environmental influences and upbringings. So,
Yeah, and as a parent, you and I are both moms, right?
mhm,
No matter what your child would do, would you ever condemn them to eternal damnation and hell and burning? Like, I mean, like, it just doesn't
mhm,
make any sense, you know? It just logically doesn't make any sense. So, just to try to help people with that a little bit.
mhm,
Yeah, and what you're doing, I think it's so important. I think it's just important to start. There's a shift, and I think it's important for us to start speaking up and out about it, and helping other people. I remember when another thing that it could be dogma of religion, but it could also be um, current thought processes, like some new age thinking can actually kind of replicate religious dogma, because it's like this, like positive thinking, for example. I'm all for being positive. I'm a glass half full kind of person by nature, but you can get messy where people start thinking, "Oh, I thought a bad thought. Oh, now this is gonna, I'm gonna have this happen." I have actually had parents who I've given readings to where their children are in spirit, and they thought, like one parent, the child had passed of cancer, and this mom happened to see the word of the type of cancer when the child was young, and she kept thinking, "Why am I seeing this word?" She was experiencing clairvoyance.
mhm,
Her guides were giving her the heads up the same way I was given the heads up. But she didn't know, and because of this new age thinking, she really beat herself up thinking she caused it, right?
mhm,
Because she saw the word, and she was thinking about, well, why would I think that? Did I cause this? Because I had so much fear around it. No, you didn't cause it. You were given guidance by your angels and your team to know that this was coming up. And I if I've experienced that, and the a few of the people that I've given readings to, how many people are out there thinking they caused something because precognitively they saw it? I don't think that I have some special gift. I think actually all of us have these abilities across the board. I think that some of us are more tuned into it. Maybe in past lives we've been more tuned into it, but I think that all of us have the clairs, you know, and this is a perfect example of these parents who have seen it and then they thought they caused it. No, they didn't cause it. They were just picking up on it before it happened.
yeah, and I've had that experience when I counsel people too as well, and then even my own experience. Am I creating this and manifesting it? Because we learn about manifesting, and so we don't, or maybe we just get it mixed up with what is precog and manifestation, and the difference between it and how it resonates and vibrates with us as we're experiencing it. And I think a lot of it's just education. We have to be educated on we have those abilities. We do get precogs because everything is transparent. That was one of my channelings from the other side, is everything's transparent. So we're always given the information that we need. Nothing's kept from us from the other side. We're always giving it. It's us tuning into it,
Mm.
and recognizing it and understanding it versus, believing it's us or creating it or evil or bad. So it's definitely education, I think, because we've come so far from where our actuality is, and remembering who we truly are, that we're going through this awakening right now. And so that's part of, excuse me, coming back into alignment with that.
That's why I wrote the book, actually, was that's the biggest reason is, so is free will. There's one way of saying free will is I can manifest anything. I want a port, if someone cares about a Porsche or whatever, these material things, or even for me, I'm going to manifest that my child is going to be okay and live a long, happy, healthy life. Um, that I don't know that that's not the right way to come about it. I think free will is, okay, there are certain things that we've signed up for, certain things that are happen. Now I get to use my free will, and how am I going to approach this?
Hmm.
I mean, I could have just stopped eating and just laid down and died. I could have, chosen to be angry. I could have chosen to obsess on the person who gave him the pill, right? And let that harden in my heart the rest of my life. That those are choices. And I think that's where free will is. That's
Mhm.
where free will is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have free will and we have the power to use it.
Yeah.
And that's choice. So, you know, no matter what situation, though your situation, my situation, the person around the corner there, whatever our situation is, we have that ability to make choice in what we do with it. We don't always maybe want the situation or remember that we've signed up for a situation, but we always have choice how we deal with it and focus on it.
Yeah, it's
And that's
important to
powerful, I
know.
think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And just
Yeah.
shifting that perspective a little bit helps, right?
Yeah. And it's not to say negate what's going on because we do have to process it and work through it and heal it and transform it. So that's part of the path too, you know, is doing the work around the situation, not being so positive that we negate it or don't, you know, work through it because we too, because we're having the experience, then we signed up for the experience on that spectrum, right?
It's
Because we
yeah.
have the doer and then we have the observer and then we have this person who plays a role. It's like a big family playing out a role in a situation, and we all have a takeaway and a part in it that we're supposed to work on for ourselves. And so it's not about they did it or this person did it, and it's their responsibility. It's everybody's responsible because we're all playing a role in this
I'm
situation.
so glad you said that because I actually have a whole chapter on that as well.
Awesome.
Because it's that's I mean that the term would be spiritually bypassing, right? Uh,
Hmm.
and just wanting life is two-sided. This is a dualistic world, there's going to be the ups and the downs. And so there's a whole chapter on how to embrace the pain and actually feel the pain. So if you keep running away from the pain, you don't get to work through, you don't do the work.
Hmm.
So it's like just okay, here it comes again, and trust it, I'll still get it. I mean, I'll still have like a wave of pain. I was just with a close friend last night, and just it welled up. I don't bottle it down. People can handle my tears, and just or maybe if you're by yourself, where am I feeling this? Oh, I'm feeling it in my throat, or I'm feeling it in my chest, and just to really go through it and feel it and have compassion for yourself while you're going through that. Don't try to run. Don't try to, put headphones on to block it out. Um, don't go turn to a drink. There's all these different ways. And like I early on, let me tell you, just to be humble, early on, I didn't turn to drinking, but I turned to In-N-Out Burger. I would eat, like, there were days where I just ate junk, a lot of more junk food than I never, ever normally would have. But I just allowed myself that, just, hey, it's just a kind of, we got to give ourselves compassion. I've seen people who are even hard on themselves with how they're grieving.
Hmm.
And we wouldn't do that to our best friend. We'd put our arm around our best friend and just say, yeah, this sucks, you know?
Hmm.
So it's really important for people to understand that too. Yeah, the pain, there's a gift in the pain. We just have
There is, and
to
there's
find it.
love that comes from the side when we're going through it. So we're not alone, even though if we're sitting there alone, we're not alone. We have the love from the other side that's helping, guiding us, and bringing in the wisdom and knowledge, waiting for that clear space, clear mind, so we can receive the messages.
Yeah, and sometimes they'll have to sneak in different ways.
Mhm.
I do meditate, but I know other people will go out and walk or run, and all of a sudden, you know, it comes in
Mhm.
that way. So we are at that's it's really funny, Laura. You're using your intuition because that's another chapter, which is about that we're not alone in this. We're all
Mhm.
a team. And I also do believe that not all of us comes down here. So it's not like, there's a part of me, probably a bigger part of me that is still back in spirit with Sean.
Mhm.
And it's just this part that's down here that's going through, boots on the ground kind of experience.
Yeah, and what I shared with uh, Dr. Mark Pitstick is I had an experience in this lifetime where my second child was a boy, and though I love him dearly, I wanted a girl because I wanted that relationship. But I didn't get, and I was very upset when I had the ultrasound done, and I couldn't understand why I was upset. I'm like, why am I so upset over this? I wanted a girl, but a boy is good too.
Yeah.
I already had a boy. Um, and later, it wasn't till after the fact, I've gone through all that. That was part of what brought me to my near-death experience and the dark night of the soul and everything else. Um, but it wasn't till I'd say about last year that I was asking spirit, okay, so why didn't I have a girl in this life, right? And so they showed me, and it's because I have a another life that's actually happening at the same time with a daughter. And so I was so overjoyed that I have a daughter. And in this life, if I had a daughter, I would be able to do what I'm doing now because I would have more time spent with a daughter and not doing and focusing on what this part of myself wanted to do. So we are multidimensional beings. So we have multiple different lives going on at the same time at certain points. And so it was really interesting to know that I had a daughter in in a different life. And it made my soul and my spirit be like, oh, thank
Yeah.
God. And I got to see it. And how they showed it to me was like, I was, like in the Christmas Carol, the Ebenezer, where they're standing, but they're not in the play. You're
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
you're like observing the play, but you're not a part of it because they can't see you. And it was like that. It was so
Ah.
amazing. So
Oh,
they
what an amazing experience.
mm-hmm.
But I do, I believe that too. It's because on the other side, there's no, we're linear here. We
Yeah.
have to be linear to have these experiences and learn from them and everything. But over there, there's time block theory if people want to look that up, but it's like everything's happening all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would stand to reason. Another thing with Sean, which was interesting, was um, I had gone in the beginning through Helping Parents Heal. I had gone to a couple of mediums, and they all were describing the same thing. They're like, he's over there helping all these young men, who've struggled with addiction. I'm like, oh, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
and they all described the same situation. He's doing this, this, and this. Well, I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. He was doing that here. He had that experience. He's definitely a people person. He always was looking out for the underdog. He was, and he was everyone's rock. That's what was so hard for my daughter and my other son was that Sean was their rock. And so now they're trying, and they're finding their own way. But I keep reminding them he's still here. So you tune in, he's giving you tips. He's giving you tips. And funny ways that he'll communicate. I had worked with a medium and she started it, Sean came in and usually I know when Sean comes in because he's got a lot of energy. So you could see the medium going, oh, like slow down, and he was talking about his sister and she's like, she did something with her eyebrows. I don't know what to do with her eyebrows. I'm like, I don't know. Um, so when I got off the phone, I called my daughter and I said, Sean came in. She's very open to all this. And I said, what'd you do? Did you do something with your eyebrows? She goes, oh my gosh, Mom. Just yesterday I had, she has very thick Irish eyebrows.
Mm-hmm.
So she says, yesterday I just had my eyebrows done and it was tripping me out because I was looking at myself saying, oh my God, I look like Sean. She couldn't get over it. And so that was the fun, but that was fun, funny evidence. But back to the work that Sean's doing, the one of the first times that he came in to a reading, I had a mom or an aunt. I can't remember my readings. I tend to climb in the back seat and I let spirit take over. So most of the time I don't remember if I even what they even said. It's a strange phenomenon, but I guess I probably couldn't hold it all in my head. Um, but I do remember this because a beautiful young man came in. But before he came in, I pray before I do my readings. And Sean came in. And Sean, if you remember Tigger from Winnie the Pooh,
Mm-hmm.
that's Sean. So we used to call him Tigger. So he bounced in. And I thought I was I'm like, wait, what? What? what are you doing here? He goes, Mom, this is so cool. This is so cool. I got something I'm bringing someone into you. And I just thought, what is going on? And then this young man stepped forward, and then he gave me all of his evidence and everything. And he had passed from an overdose and all of this, and then Sean just stepped back, and I have goosebumps right now. And I've had that a number of times where it's like all of a sudden, so it's like we're kind of working together.
Hmm.
It's neat, I mean, would I rather have him in physical form? Yes, but I'm just operating from the smaller human brain. I can't pretend to think that I have all the answers. There's a higher reason for everything, and I just have to surrender and give faith to that. And so he is doing his work on the other side, and been helping me with that, and that's been helping these children get to their parents, and these parents. And it's just not just children. I mean, I've had people who've passed that are parents who have come in, and they might have struggled with alcohol or this or that, and coming forward and trying to clean up. They'll show me, like, they'll have a broom and they're like trying to clean up their side of the street. They're like, I'm sorry, for this and this. And it really helps the healing of the person here too, to understand that, oh, now they see a different perspective. Um,
Hmm.
there's just so much more to it than our limited brains can understand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's beautiful. I love that he's helping other people, also with the addictions. Whether it's, what you call it, the other side, or into another lifetime, or whatever the case may be. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I do have two spirit-led questions that came up to me, and I don't know who put them in, but they came out. So one of them is, have you thought of helping people with vision limitations to use their and develop their intuitive abilities and psychic abilities? Because I know a lot of people are starting to train younger kids in different areas and regions of the world. Also, like if in karate, they blindfold them and they help them to use their abilities. So have you thought about doing that, whether you do it in a private practice or where you're currently at?
Well, where I'm currently at, I keep it separate because it's, in the public school system and all of that. But my kids are very intuitive, that I work with, the students. So the way that I always will work with them is they'll say something, they'll say, "Oh, I knew that, and then I did this." And so I'll always, trust your guidance. You were being guided. Trust yourself, follow your intuition. So I'm always trying to nudge them with that. But I love that idea. I know that, I think, is it in Britain, where they have children who are blindfolded, and they're not blind, but they're blindfolded, and they could read books. Like, how is that
Mhm.
possible? So I love that idea. Yeah. I don't do it professionally. Right now, I'm just doing the mediumship and then teaching the blind. But I absolutely encourage my students to follow their intuition. And it's usually, even with the clients that I work with, that I give readings, spirit will always come in, and they'll be wanting to create a new relationship. They're like, okay, so yes, I passed physically, but here's how we're going to communicate now. And it might be the strangest. I had one person who they said they were bringing up that this person has a cat. I said, you have a cat? And they said, yeah. And their loved one was saying, go and pet the cat. It calms your whole system down, and then I can come in and be with you. And so they have all these different ways of connecting. Um, but I love that idea, of working with the blind. Maybe that'll be something in the future I can do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because maybe that's the point of the question that they want to impose,
Yes.
because I think that might help people who are blind and have to rely on things and don't realize that they have the ability. Because when one area of our senses tends to go, or we don't have it, we have others, and it's also like autism and all the other spectrums and all the other disabilities that the body has, not us because we're souls and spirit who inhibit the body, but it's the body that has those. But the other ones are heightened. So you might have more intuitive, more clairvoyant, more sensing, or be able to channel or do art. We have other senses that are heightened in those cases, and maybe they just don't know, and we don't teach them that, right? We teach them to be dependent on society and the system, and keeping them locked into the limitation of that perception.
That's my biggest passion when I'm working with my students is actually independence.
Hmm.
Like, let's see how you can, and technology is amazing now. Let's see how much you can do on your own. You don't need them. Let's figure out. Now, sometimes you do need to ask for help, but we all do. When you're talking about the senses, I also have my degree in orientation mobility, which is cane skills, using the canes. And when I was trained, they had to blindfold me and I had to find my way around San Francisco. And but once you're blindfolded, you could start to you'll and I can't hear very well. Um, Probably way too much loud music when I was younger. But when you're walking down a hall, when I was blindfolded, I could hear when the hallway ended. I could hear when there was an opening, So it's interesting. Even your physical senses, you'll use more of that. Even like perfume, I have to be careful of. I don't want to wear too much perfume. Um, I get migraines with certain smells. I have a very heightened sense of smell. And it's funny, it's almost like as my hearing is going, because my hearing is going, I should be wearing hearing aids. My clairaudience is strengthening. So it's
Mm.
fascinating, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then what popped back in was the Helen Keller, because I loved her. I love that movie too. I don't know, if it was the full truthness of the whole journey of her life, but it definitely resonated with me, and I love that movie. So, yeah.
Well, her teacher, Annie Sullivan, people didn't even know about Annie Sullivan. I mean,
Hmm.
Annie Sullivan was one tough woman. Like she was it's a beautiful story. It's in my book. I have a chapter on her, but I mean, talk about resilience. Her mom died. Her dad was an abusive drunk, and he gave her and I think they were Irish immigrants. I'm not sure. Gave them away to some kind of orphanage that was just filthy. And then her brother died, so she's all alone in the world. Then contracts some disease where she loses her eyesight, and somebody had come in to inspect this orphanage, and she jumped out at them as like, send me to this Perkins School for the Blind, like she did. So she got her education. She almost got kicked out multiple times for breaking rules. And if it weren't for Annie Sullivan, we wouldn't have Helen Keller. And Helen Keller
Hmm.
was so important. So a lot of times it's the people in the background that can be just as powerful. It's funny, Laura, I don't do, and my teachers have encouraged me, you should, be doing social media or Instagram. I don't do any of it. My daughter so lovingly created a website for me, but I'm very private that way. And I always just feel that spirit will lead whoever needs to come to me. They will know, and they will come to me. It's fascinating how that works. But kind of like Annie Sullivan, nobody knew about Annie Sullivan. She's kind of in the background.
Hmm.
I'm happy just being in the background, just working kind of quietly, and although I know I probably should put myself out there a little bit more. I'm working on that. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, those two women were amazing, are amazing women.
Yeah, and I feel like they have a big role in your life there, as role
Yeah.
models in a sense of what you're doing. So
Yes,
definitely.
for sure.
The other spirit-led question, has Sean shared anything with you about the other side that you would be putting and writing in a book and working together on that? Because I feel like from what you've shared, you guys have this agreement, like what's, flowering and blossoming right now.
Yeah, I have the book that I wrote is purposely smaller because I wanted it to be where it's not overwhelming when you're in the depths of grief. Everything's just overwhelming. Like making some toast can just be overwhelming, and I wanted it to be a book where you can pick it up and then just openly, spirit will guide you to the right chapter. You just openly um, find where you need to go. So that book's smaller. I haven't thought about that, writing a book with Sean. Has Sean shown me things on the other side? Yes. for that example with him coming in and bringing that young man. So clearly we're still learning things on the other side. It when I was little and at school, you think, oh, you just magically know everything. I don't
Mhm.
think that's the case. I think that there's levels. I
Mhm.
definitely think there's not I know from my experience, and I've only experienced absolute love and healing and humbleness from those coming forward. Um, if there needed to be apologies, that there's only love and support on the other side. But I think that they still learn from it's kind of like looking back on a vacation that you took and you're like, oh, okay, I could have done that better. Or, oh, that taught me, to stand up for myself and speak up more. And, so they look back on their lives and they learn from them. So the aspect of learning and growing continues on the other side. That's something that was newer to me. Although my friend Kathy, when she would come in my dreams, she had said that when it was so interesting, she came and in the second dream she came, she goes, I'm gonna leave now because I have things to do. And I remember thinking, well, we were only in our 30s at the time, but I remember thinking, things to do. What is she doing? She had work to do. And so now that makes sense, right?
Mhm.
Constantly growing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just in this one lifetime, I know I've seen other past lifetimes and other multiple lifetimes. And then I had near-death experience, Kundalini. I've done astral travel. I mean, I've done a lot in this lifetime. I'm exhausted, but I'm still learning. I'm still growing, even in this one lifetime. And I understand, having different lifetimes, we're still working and growing. So it's never ending for sure.
And I know that there are parents out there who are probably, or and not just parents, people who've lost anyone, who are like, "Oh my God, I just want this to be the end. I don't want to have another lifetime." I have thought that. I mean, I've definitely thought that. But I think that when we're on the other side or that other dimension, the heaviness of this and the fatigue and the tiredness of like what you were just expressing, I think that all just goes away. It's kind of like the pain that you have when you give birth to a child, just kind of
Mhm.
goes away, and then I'll have another one.
I know,
So
what made me do that?
yeah, I did 3 times.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think that's what happens. We just have a better perspective. This this dimension, this 3D dimension, can be very heavy, can be very hard, and I think that everybody who's here needs to give themselves like a pat on the back, like,
Mhm,
wow, we're brave for jumping into story, this storyline. Just to give yourself some compassion and a pat on the back. Just be a little kinder to yourself. I think
yeah.
that's one of the biggest messages I'd like to get.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I kinda am like, "Oh my god, I wanna go home."
Me too.
At point and for me, that's kinda like a cycle, especially knowing what's on the other side, remembering, through the near-death experience, so it's not like I was born once, it was like coming back and doing it again, and I'm like, "Oh god, I wanna go back." You know?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like,
now I
it could
know.
be much better. But and I used to think that, but now I think, well, for, my loved ones here,
Mhm,
I'm sticking it out for my loved ones here.
mhm.
And that's where I'm putting my efforts now. Because
Yeah.
yes, if it was just me and I didn't have loved ones, I might be like, I want to go back there. But there's a reason.
Mhm.
If we're still here, there's a reason for it. We're not done yet.
Exactly. Yeah, we still got more work to do,
Yeah.
you
And who
know.
knows who you're going to be helping and the ripple
Exactly.
effect of that.
Yeah,
We're
because it
all
all ripples
important.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're all important.
yeah. So, just bringing this into a close, because I know we're kinda on the timeline there, so just a couple questions to, bring that into closing. Has being able to connect to the other side and knowing that we would die help lessen any grieving process that we have to go through, and no matter what that is? Like, even in your situation with losing a child, do you think it helps lessen, the
Oh,
grieving process just
absolutely.
knowing?
I think that you still go through the grief, even with me, with such connection with Sean. I still go through the grief. I want everyone to know that it's a natural part of it. I don't think we can get away with it. I don't think you should try to get away from it because it's just such a natural. It's why we're here, to feel all
Mhm.
of these. emotions. But I can't imagine, my heart goes out to people who think that this is it. They don't know any better and they think that this is it. I think it makes a huge difference. I've seen the difference when I've done readings. I've seen the difference in my clients, in the beginning of a reading and afterward. They're just standing up taller, or sitting taller. They know their loved ones are right there. And yeah, that gives us the strength to go on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, it is definitely helpful, for sure. And then how can people live fuller lives in the face of tragedy?
I would say using free will. Um, Tragedy can take you down to your knees, or it can be the very thing that builds you into the person and the evolved soul that you signed up to be. I actually got for that reason, I got a tattoo. I don't know if you could see it, is a
Yep.
phoenix rising from the ashes for Sean and for me, and just to remind ourselves of that. Like, yes, we just got burnt to the ground, and that's what it feels like. But that's where the free will is, right? Can't control
Hmm.
the universe. There are things we cannot control, can't control other people's fate. But man, we can control. Are we just gonna give up? Or are we gonna say, okay, all right, so what did I learn from that? That's actually my last chapter. I have a list of questions to help the reader, what can I learn from this, or how can I serve others? How can I forgive myself? All these, I take the reader through a list of questions that are more empowering, and just start them on that journey where they get up off the ground and you dust off your knees and you're like, okay, I got this and I'm going to move forward. And that's how you move forward after tragedy.
Perfect. Love that. Yeah. And I think your book is a perfect example that's going to help people with grieving, because you do cover a lot of insightful, awareness in it. So definitely that's
Um,
important.
I hope
Um,
so. I hope so.
yeah. And then lastly, what insights or words or wisdom do you have that you can offer to people who are fearing death or about to transition?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll keep it short because I know we're at the end. There was a story I was going to tell you.
Oh,
But
God, you
it,
can share if you feel like
oh,
it.
okay. Well, when I was doing the one of the very first readings where someone else's loved one came through and gave such evidence that I couldn't deny it. I mean, she throat cancer, even the name of their dog, and it was unbelievable. And that day I had to sit down for hours, and I just sat down and had to release, and I almost feel like it was releasing out of my head all this dogma, all these fears. um, and these are things we're programmed to. We don't come
Mhm.
into this world with these fears. These are all societies, religion, culture, they're all put on us. I would invite somebody who is in that process to ask themselves, is this true, or is this something that's just been put on me? And to question, what if it's not true? What if it's just absolute love and joy, like so many near death experiencers like you, Laura, have experienced? Entertain that and give yourself a little bit of room for releasing what doesn't serve you anymore. Um, that's what I would that's what I would definitely recommend. And doing the research, taking the time. If you have fear around death or dying, what look at the research, the scientific research of people who actually have crossed. There's
Mhm.
there's stories that are just, you cannot reconcile it any other way. And these, by and large, most of the people have felt unbelievable love and support. And the very small percentage of people who have said they've experienced some kind of hellish experience, in that experience, they realize that they were creating it, and they
Mhm.
ask for help. And, some guide, whether it's Jesus or someone else, comes, and all of a sudden they're out of that. That was all in their mind. And so
Mhm.
that's where I think educating more and more people will help, so that when we cross, we don't have all of those fears in our mind that we have to. It's almost like waking up from a dream. Spirit had showed me one time, that it's like waking up. Sean used to, the first year, he would wake me up in the middle of the night and give me these downloads of information. And it was like, oh, like one of them was, it's not the afterlife, it's the side by side life. They're right here. They're just at a different vibration. They're just vibrating
Hmm.
faster, but they're right here with us. And and another was that there's just absolute, absolute love on the other side. So nothing to fear. And it's like waking up from a dream. So, have you ever woken up from a dream and you're like, wait, was that real? It just takes a split second to kind of come to. I think that
Hmm.
that might be what it might be for somebody who, had that negative experience for a split second. But those are so far and few in between. And
Hmm.
I know that those people themselves have said that was from what I was taught, wasn't reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't have that in my transition. I went straight into the void and then into the light. And the only thing, because on the other side was in this pitch black was like a white light. And then I was trying to communicate with them from my awareness in human form. And they said, you have to drop that and leave that behind in order to come to the light. And so when I did that, then I went into the light. It is our perception and reality that continues into the other side until a certain point. In order to reach the other side, we have to drop our concepts, our beliefs, our realities, things that we've been told, and if we're not willing or ready to that, we remain in that space. And it may seem like forever because we're just reviewing it. It's kind of like an inter life review, um, you know, to look at what is holding us from going to the light, per se.
Right. Right. Programming. It's our
Yeah.
programming. We've all had different programming, and someone in a totally different part of this world can have completely different programming than me.
Hmm.
That's not us. It's just the programming we received.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being on this show today and talking with the viewers. Do you have any last words, messages, or anything you'd like to share that we didn't cover?
No, I think we covered all of it. Um, I'm sorry, Spirit's talking to me.
Okay.
They're wanting to reiterate this self-compassion. They're really wanting to underline that. They're showing me the word underlining it. Just make sure people just give themselves a little bit of breathing room when they're going through any loss at all. And they're doing the best that they can and just keep moving forward one step at a time. But when you go backward, don't berate yourself. When you fall, when you do, things that that probably aren't for the best, don't berate yourself. Just say, okay, let's keep moving forward and just be your own best friend.
Hmm.
That's what I'm being led to tell people.
Beautiful. Thank you. And how can we find your amazing book for people who are going through this, the grief situation? Where can they find that and reach out to you for your services?
Oh, it's on Amazon. And here's a copy of it, The Choice to Rise. And you just have my name. Or you can also go to my website, really simple, Kathy McHugh, kathymchugh.com. And that you can find it there as well.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Thank you. You're doing good work, Laura.
Thank you.
Let's talk about death, baby. Let's talk about you and me. We're not the one and only. It's going to happen to everybody. Yeah, baby. Say it isn't so, baby. It's the truth, don't you know, baby? We're all consciousness, living out our reason in a world of endless stories. Said from the beginning, we race to the finish as we face the harsh reality. We don't remember where we come from or where we're going. But don't you worry, baby. We are all worthy of the one true story. It isn't in the distant past, it's the future that unfolds.